What's up, everybody? It's Reggie Williams, founder and CEO of Ambrosia for Heads. And with me, I have Jake Payne, our editor-in-chief. And together, this is our What's the Headline. Yo, what's going on, man?
What's going on, man? Just two rap fans and hoodies that show the rap artists they like. You know, I like it.
Two rap fans and hoodies. Clearly, there's no hoodies on the Grammy committee, right? Like, shots fired immediately. Immediately.
Yeah, no. A lot of shoulder bags though. You know, a lot of cross body. You know, what do they call that? You know what I mean? The fanny crossbody fanny pack.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, yo, man, it's that season again, award season. We torture ourselves every year. You know, it's such a conflicted thing. This and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I think, are the two most polarizing things in music for our readers and probably us too. In that we tell ourselves that it doesn't matter. Like, you know, every year we say, like Flavor Flav said, who gives a fuck about a goddamn Grammy? But
Yep.
reality is people care, man. People really do care about these things. There's reasons why artists like Drake don't go back to the Grammys because they actually cared at some point, you know? So we're at that season where, you know, we got the nominees today for the Grammys.
Absolutely. And as I said last year, you know, a win can change an artist, you know, can really change this year's price or next year's price. You know, I think every artist loves to see Grammy winning, Grammy nominated next to their name. And even though they might not attend or might not make it, I think all eyes are always on the category. So yeah, man, happened in real time, and we are just moments after recording this.
Yeah. So let's do it like we usually do, man. Let's go through. Let's talk about it. Let's evaluate the job that they've done. Then let's talk about what we think was missing. And then let's talk about who we think is going to win. That work?
That sounds good to me. Yeah, absolutely. And this year, much like last, you know, they do this live at noon. And Harvey Mason Jr., I believe, hosts a lot of it. This year had John Legend, Cyndi Lauper, Dan and Shay, a lot of different folks coming on for categories, but they didn't make us wait too long for rap. And they started with rap performance, and I can kick us off if you want.
Well, let's take a beat on that though. So they started with rap performance. Rap is always one of the most controversial categories. And I think what we've seen is that people like Drake and, you know, Jay and others have boycotted because they believe that the Grammys have used their star power, their drawing power to bring people in, but then don't evaluate their categories objectively or with the credibility that they deserve. And a lot of the times that extends beyond the rap category to the album of the year category, you know, or, you know, song of the year or record of the year, or whatever it may be. It's almost like it's segregated, you know, to a certain extent. So do you think them starting with rap performance is like another example of that?
You mean among the categories, among the rap categories?
Yeah.
I mean, I think in the eyes of the Grammys, even though Album of the Year is probably the most visible title, they still represent a music culture that is singles based. And I know performance, yeah, I mean it's funny because there is rap song, but rap performance has kind of become the what we remember of singles. So I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at all. Last year, Kendrick and Baby Keem won it for Family Ties. And they were, you know, decorated. That song was decorated throughout the categories. But I think it's an interesting point you make nonetheless.
Yeah. Okay. All right, cool. So you want to go through the nominees?
Yeah, I mean, right from Rip is a big one. DJ Khaled featuring Rick Ross, Lil Wayne, Jay-Z, John Legend, and Friday God Did, a song that we spoke about on this podcast. At one point in time, you had called Jay-Z's verse the verse of the year. We'll talk more about that in a second. Up against Doja Cat, Vegas. Up against Gunna and Future featuring Young Thug, Push and P. Up against Hit Kid and Glorilla, F&F, Let's Go. And then finishing out the category is Kendrick Lamar's The Hard Part 5, which I believe is the first time any Heart has been nominated. You know, this is the 5th installment. And you and I had a sidebar. I don't think we had it on the podcast recently. You know, if you go to the DSPs, since Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers came out, you know, PG Lang added that song to the playlist. And you and I were talking about it, you know, kind of debating
add to the album track list.
Yeah, what did I say? Yeah.
Yeah, the playlist. Yeah, yeah, but to the
Added
album.
it to the album. And, at the time, I gotta say, like, I didn't even think Grammy consideration would be part of it, but now that move is making a lot of sense. What about you?
Yeah, it made a lot of sense to me. At the time, I thought it was for commercial purposes, just because it was the most streamed of the releases that Kendrick had in May, and so that definitely props up the album. But yeah, I didn't anticipate Grammy consideration, but it was such a high profile video and the verses
Yeah.
were so compelling. It doesn't surprise me when I step back and think about it. But this is big. This is really big because I think Kendrick really, I wouldn't say treats them as throwaways, but treats them as bridges between the albums and typically not really an official part of the work, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they've been brilliant, timeless, meaningful promotional items, but I feel like they have been received by the fans. I think of the millions upon millions, now billions of people that have streamed Kendrick Lamar. There's a vast majority that might not even be aware that that series exists. And now to see this be the one that elevates to arguably, one of the bigger singles driven categories in all of the Grammys is really, really interesting.
Yes, I
Oh,
think
go
it's.
ahead.
I think we should talk about the difference between performance and song too.
Okay.
Song is really about the written version of it. It's the lyrics. It's not the actual like recording. Performance is the recording, and so this could be any record that was put out over the years. So when I think about Kendrick, the Heart Part 5 was phenomenal. I remember like it came out on Mother's Day 2022 in May this year. And I was almost like shaking because like I hadn't heard new Kendrick music in so long, new solo Kendrick. And I knew that the heart is when the rollout actually starts. So I was wondering, okay, wow, this is what's coming. And so I was part trying to like listen to it, process it, but also like, what are we going to write about? Watching the video because it debuted on video was
Yeah.
mind blowing because the deep fakes with OJ and Will Smith and Jussie Smollett and Kanye and and Nipsey Hussle, like that was incredible. So it was just like a full on assault on the senses when it first came out. That being said, given it all those props, which it really does deserve, I don't know that it's the best Kendrick record to drop this year, in my opinion. Given some of the stuff that was on Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, I think that songs like Auntie Diaries are contender just because of the substance of that, where Kendrick is confronting his own like past homophobia and transphobia, and really sharing the stories, powerful stories of family members of his who are trans. And then Mother I Sober, where he talks about like, allegations that he was sexually abused that were untrue, and having to, but the imprint that left on him and how it affected him. I think that songs like that, even what is it? When I Cry, we cry, we all
Oh
cry,
yeah,
we cry
we cry
together,
together.
we
Yeah.
cry together. Which is really hard to hear, but like a very powerful song. But what about for you? Do you think this is Kendrick's best record?
My opinion on it's changed a bit. I think that it's the song. You and I actually had this exact conversation over text recently, and I said I've come to think that it's my favorite song that Kendrick has put out, this year, which there's plenty to choose from. And you countered me pointing out to those two records, Mother I Sober and Auntie Diaries. And I kind of conceded that I think that, objectively, while they might not be my favorite, I think they're incredible songs. Those are groundbreaking for not just hip hop culture, but all of music. And at the time, back, in May and June, when we were really receiving the album and did an incredible deep dive that you largely ran point on, working with Beth Givens from Portishead, that seems like taking a very topical issue, a very topical conversation that's happening around, dinner tables and online across the country and the world. It seems poised to win, certainly get Grammy recognition. I don't know if that's going to show itself in performance or best rap song, but I do agree with you that I did not expect The Heart to be the one, especially as for a part of its life, a standalone single. So I think we're saying the same thing.
Yep. Okay. All right. Cool. So All right. So what do you think of the category generally? I think, you know, Jay and Kendrick to me are no brainers, you know, whether it be that Kendrick record or another one. But Jay, like you said, I called it verse of the year. Recently did a piece where I said Lupe had the verse of the year and it was only one line. And the line is rappers die too much, you know, and given the things that have happened over the last couple of months with the loss of Takeoff and PNB Rock and, you know, others that we can't name, and 60 others since
Yeah.
86, that line is just poignant and just has a resonance, you know, beyond almost anything that's been said this year. And so, you know, but obviously The Heart and God Did are incredible records. Versus Doja Cat, you know, there's always an argument about whether or not like she's even hip hop.
Grammys adore her. You know, they adore Doja Cat, they adore Lizzo, and now you know we'll talk about it later. But the Grammys have their favorites. I agree with you. I think that those are the two that jump out to me. Like really, as a hip hop head, this one is about Kendrick and Jay-Z. Like all respect due to Rick Ross, Lil Wayne, DJ Khaled, John Legend, and Friday. But that is Jay's moment. And I'm curious, you know, you made a point a moment ago of Jay often not attending the Grammys. He hasn't. And I'm curious, just given his participation in this moment, kind of being a reminder of how Jay writes or lacks thereof, like how he thinks, how he records, how there's so many levels of his lyrics. I'll be curious if, you know, he'll be in attendance on February 5th for this one.
Yeah, I kind of doubt it, and we'll get to. I'll say, I think the competition is a little bit weird this year for him.
Yeah.
I'll just leave it at that for now. But I think that he won't because of that. I think it's going to be a little bit too political. But you know, Gunna and Hit Kid, Gunna and Future, Push and P with Young Thug, that's a great record, you know. And you know, despite it not fitting into the genre that we cover, I do think that it belongs. It was such a cultural thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm wondering if that's going to raise awareness to, you know, the condition of Gunna and Young Thug, who are both in jail now facing RICO charges for a bunch of different things. You know, what do you think? What do you think about that? The inclusion of that and Hit Kid and Gorilla's FNF.
I mean, you put me onto the Gunna album, and I really liked it. It was one of my go-to releases in Q1 of this year, and I do think that both of these guys are due and perhaps overdue for Grammy recognition. I mean, just given some of the trap artists that we've seen, but it's interesting. You're right that the Grammys would choose now. Future's won a Grammy before by virtue of King's what's the song from Black Panther with J-Rock, Kendrick, and James
Yeah,
Blake?
King's Dead, not King's Dead.
King's
Yeah,
Dead, thank you.
yeah.
Which, you know, when I think of that song, all respect to the Future, I don't necessarily think of his contributions to that, but I do think that this is a case of like, hey, Future is a superstar. He's doing things that other artists frankly aren't. And the Grammys are showing up. I hope it does bring awareness. That being said, it's funny, like this is one where I would be shocked if that was the song that won in a category. But as we're gonna get to, both of those artists are not just in one place on these awards, so you never know how it's gonna play out. But yeah, there's a lot of speculation. You know, Killer Mike has done some press about it. He put his video out just of how artists are being treated unfairly and wrongly incarcerated, which is nothing new to, you know, the YSL situation. But yeah, that one was a bit of a surprise to me. What about
Yeah,
what
how
about Hit
awkward
Kid
would
and
that be if they won, right? I'm sorry, Gunna and Young Thug couldn't be here tonight because they're incarcerated. Like, I mean, just it would raise a lot of attention to the issue, you know?
Yeah, and Future is a little bit of a liability, I imagine, to the Grammys. I mean, Future is one of those guys. He kind of strikes me as a less funny Marshawn Lynch, because anytime you put a microphone in Future's face, he just does not give a damn. And we've seen the Grammys react to Drake's speeches in recent years. You know, other artists. Future winning is a tune-in moment, regardless of what you may or may not think of his music.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, F&F also is a big record. Again, not something that we would put on the AFH playlist, but I'm not mad at the nomination. You got to be diverse in these, and so I get it.
Yeah, and I mean, with that, I just one point of note. I mean, we've covered Yo Gotti on the site, in the periphery. I mean, he's been doing it for close to 20 years out of Memphis. And Yo Gotti's CMG, I mean, we talk about the transition that artists are making into entrepreneurs. And I mean, his label has done so much when you look at, 42 Doug, ESTG, Black Gangster, or Black Youngster, Blockwood. Like, Gotti has built a label that at this point, I think is probably bigger than his career, which I know he has diehards out here. So just an interesting point of note to watch another artist really build something special.
Yeah. So when I think about who got left out that I would have liked to have seen included, the first one that comes to mind for me is JID. His album, The Never Ending Story, The Forever Story, is to me top 2, top 3 for this year. And Cody Blue 31 is one of the best songs he's ever done, and in my opinion, a top 5 song this year. That record's just incredible. So I would have loved to have seen that. I would have loved to have seen Joey Badass get some recognition. Head High is incredible. And, the way he flipped it for the BET Awards, but just really about gun violence and the loss of rappers due to violence, like that, again, is just very pertinent for this year and several other years. Those two stick out for me. Any other ones that stick out for you that got left off?
Those are really, really great examples, especially when you think of what's on the Grammys radar. I was thinking of both of those two artists. Yeah, I mean, there's other songs like Joey Badass, Make Me Feel, but that could technically go in the category we're about to discuss. And obviously the Kendrick ones that you mentioned. Logic, who's gotten some Grammy love in the past. Certainly, I know we often tease each other about Logic on this podcast and our differing opinions, but I think that he made songs that, could be on your, even Lupe. I mean,
Wait. I can't let you just like gloss over that. For real.
Listen,
like,
man, I'm not saying for me.
dog, I mean, if we could go back and pull the highlights of like your Logic hate, for you to be advocating for Logic at the Grammys, wow, that's wild to me.
Listen, man, the Grammys stopped everything that they were doing for Logic when he had the Suicide song. He made a really, hip hop centric album. It was like inspired by Madlib beats. Sometimes they think of the artists that get the airtime in years past. I'm just saying, not anywhere near as like, to me, JID is a snub. To me, Joey Badass is a snub. In some ways, I think Lupe Fiasco on Phonem, the song that you wrote the recent post about, is a snub. Logic, I'm not calling a snub, but when I think of artists, like Freddie Gibbs' album is not a Grammy aimed album this time, in my opinion, of what they're looking for. Logic kind of surprised me, especially since it came out through Def Jam. Anyway, that's and even another artist that's worked, but Russ, put out projects within this window late last year that could very easily pop up on the radar, but no, we didn't see that with Rapper.
Wait, was that Chomp? Did Chomp 2 come out during this?
I believe so. Yeah, it came out December. Correct me if I'm wrong.
That's a major snub. That's a major snub because Chomp 2 was just stacked, and Russ is such a great story, independent artist,
December 2021.
Yeah,
and that was funny because it was a short project, but it absolutely was. And you and I spoke about that, of the way that Russ can pivot similar to Logic, and make these albums that go one way and then make another passion project that goes another. So anyway, that was
the same timetable as Busta too, with Extinction Level Event 2. That was also a December release. I think it might be to any artist who cares about Grammy recognition, I think it might be a disservice to themselves to release that late in the year, just because, out of sight, out of mind, but two great projects that were overlooked.
Russ was
a year before, but still, yeah.
And I'm looking at Wikipedia, which is by no means the authority, but Russ has never won a Grammy or been nominated. So that is interesting unto itself, especially when folks out here, have brought up the fact that, his father's in the music industry and folks have called him a plant. You would think that would lead to, an easier road, but instead it's a tougher one.
Yeah, well, plan or not, that dude can rap. He can really, really rap. So
Chomp 2 is a dope project, and you and
yeah,
I both spoke about that. So
yeah. All right, so main event. Okay. To me, regardless of commercial status, whatever, this is Kendrick versus Hove, right? Like, take Ross, take Wayne out of it, and this is just purely Jay-Z versus Kendrick Lamar. We've seen this matchup before. First time we saw it was actually on Wax back in 2013 when Kendrick released a remix to Don't Kill My Vibe, which ironically was leaked by Young Guru. Like, do we think that that was an accident back then? Because
wow.
he was playing it at South by Southwest in a DJ set, right? When everyone in the world has phones, people know people have phones, and that's how it got out kind of prematurely. What do you think about that?
Man, you got a good memory. I had forgotten that. But yeah, I mean, I think that this is an interesting one. And I think that, Kendrick and Jay, they caught a photo together since the pandemic. Um, I think it's an interesting rivalry because they're two artists that are in so many ways infallible, just in the way they maneuver the public, their pedigree of excellence when it comes to album making, especially I think Jay, since Blueprint, arguably before, obviously with Reasonable Doubt, but he's even been critical of his second album himself. But yeah, I think that is one of the huge takeaways. And we've only talked about one category so far. This matchup is bigger.
Yeah. We'll get to other matchups they've had, like because it goes deep. Well, actually, you know what? They're not going to be matched up on that. So let's talk about that now too. So the second matchup they had was in 2017 when arguably both put out the best work of their careers. For Jay, his career is so expansive that you can break that down into chapters. But for this current chapter, 444 for me was the best record he's put out in the last 10, maybe 15 years, maybe since the Blueprint. And the subject matter is, it was the blueprint for like grown man rap. He's giving jewels about wealth building, about how to carry yourself. Like he's just on a whole different level. And it happened to go against the only non-classical, non-jazz rap album to ever win a Pulitzer Prize in Kendrick's Damn, which incidentally did not win Album of the Year that year. But head-to-head, Kendrick took Hove and won that one. There was some controversy around that because I think that people thought that I think Jay was up for Album of the Year that year too. And people believe they canceled each other out. I kind of think that happened. But in terms of rap, the Grammys preferred Kendrick. Kendrick has been a darling of the Grammys pretty much since 2013, even though he lost that battle against Macklemore, or 2014. But I think 2013. I think Kendrick will take this one because of his status in the Grammy. But it's tough. What do you think?
I think Kendrick wins the category. I think 100%. And the tricky thing is Jay-Z had hands down one of the verses of the year on God Did. But that song is bigger than Jay-Z. And while I think that mainstream culture, including the Grammys, love DJ Khaled, it's just a complicated record. And as I even say that, I think you're right that Jay won't show up. This is Khaled's moment. Khaled is part of Roc Nation management. You let your artists have their moment. And while Khaled's won a Grammy before, this would be a major win for him throughout this year. And I think that, truly, again, going back to what you broke down in terms of performance, shout out to Jay. On paper, it's amazing, obviously, the way he delivered it, but the record is more than that. You can have some amazing scenes in a movie, but those scenes aren't the whole movie. And if we're really basing a song as a movie, Kendrick, the Hard Five. I mean, there is not a weak moment on that song. I think, it is utterly incredible. And when I think of it, I do think of the video, which we'll talk about later, gets its own moment. But yeah, I think hands down that deserves to win the category. And I hope that it does.
So what's the over-under on if Khaled wins, the first two words out of his mouth are God Did?
I'm not taking that bet, man. That's a smart bet, man. No, I'm not taking that. Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool. All right, so next category is best melodic rap performance. This one is interesting. This is always one of my least favorite because like it's, you know, I guess I'm a boom bap dude. You know, the melodic rap, I almost think it like deserve. I'm glad they chose this name. It's so controversial though, and anytime you use auto tune, I think people think it's not really rap, it's more like singing. But melodic rap, you know, so be it. So the nominees are DJ Khaled featuring Future and SZA. The song is beautiful. Future featuring Drake and Tim's Wait for You, Jack Harlow First Class, Kendrick Lamar featuring Blast and Amanda Reifer Die Hard, and Lotto Big Energy, Big D Energy, live version. So yeah, first reactions to this.
Same as you. This is a category that I just really don't give a damn about. I think that melodic will always favor you know, artists of a certain profile. And even though the Grammys have expanded over the years and given looks to, you know, De La Soul or Royce the 5'9" or, you know, Freddie Gibbs and Alchemist, this category, I just expect it to be those certain type of records from artists they already are in cahoots with. Because if I go to the Ambrosia playlist, you know, there's melodic joints. Even the one I just mentioned from Joey, Make Me Feel, that I think could belong in this category. That being said, to answer your question, immediate takeaways are this is Jack Harlow and Gunna, you know, going for their first Grammy, Lotto as well. I'll give you the record to me that deserves it, and it's the record of these that I've heard the most. You know, even Die Hard, as much as I admire Kendrick, that's not a record that stuck to my ribs. I go Jack Harlow, and I know that might make you laugh or surprise you, but First Class is a good record.
Wow. Logic and Jack Harlow today.
I had my whiteys. I mean, Wheaties.
It's weird, man. I feel like I'm in the multiverse or something. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
so,
Yeah,
the interesting thing for me is, I agree with what you said, but also for me, First Class is not a melodic rap song to me. It's not a melodic rap performance. Like, to me, melodic rap is when most of the verse is singing, and typically with auto tune, right? Because most rappers can't really sing. First Class is not really Jack Harlow singing. He's rapping on that, you know, and
it's in the beat
from the Fergie sample, right?
Yeah.
Kendrick is kind of a hybrid. You know, the first verse he's a little sing-songy, but second verse he's just rapping. So Die Hard, those are both just kind of weird inclusions for me. In terms of the winner, I agree with you. Jack Harlow had a big record. I do think, though, that because of what we said before, and Kendrick being kind of the Grammy darling, the Die Hard takes this.
Boy, if for some reason Kendrick didn't win in other categories, that would be wild, because that Die Hard's never been presented as a single, right? Obviously, it does not have a video.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he only has one single, one true single, right?
Well, I mean, if you go over the videos, and
well,
then
the Heart
We
Part
Cry
5 and N95, yeah.
But We Cry Together now has
Yeah,
a
but
video.
that was a short film. That was
you're not hearing that on the radio.
Yeah.
You make a really good point on First Class, because in my mind I'm like, oh yeah, it's melodic. But again, you know, it's in the beat, it's a sample, and it comes from Fergie, which makes it even funnier, the point you're making about me and my taste of today. But it's melodic performance, it's not song. And if you're going to go to a Jack Harlow concert, he's not singing that part. No. He's not humming that part. So you make a really good point of just some of the flaws that are in this modernized structure.
Yeah, well, we'll see. All right, cool. You want to do best rap song?
Yeah, I mean, now comes the two categories that, I mean, for years, heads, if they care, gravitate towards. Best rap song. So Khaled, Rick Ross, Weezy, Jay-Z, John Legend, and Friday Again, God Did. Future featuring Drakes and Thames, Wait for You, Second Nom. Gunna, Future, and Thugga, Pusha P. Jack Harlow featuring Drake, Churchill Downs, and again, Kenny, Kung Fu Kenny with The Heart Part 5. So instant takeaways when you saw that.
So obviously a lot of overlap with best rap song. And but for me, the interesting thing is, what about Churchill Downs made it the best rap song, whereas like First Class didn't get nominated for that.
Right.
You know, and Gorilla. It's like, so to me, I guess the automatic thing is the Drake verse. That to me was one of the standout verses of the year too. Drake's verse on Churchill Downs. You know, so maybe they're giving a nod to Drake's pen, but still, and I guess as a record, it wasn't as big of a record, so I guess that makes sense. You know, when we talk about songs, you know, again, to me, this is about the lyricism, and I use that word literally now, not in terms of bars, but just in terms of like just the actual lyrics themselves and the artistry there.
Yeah.
Um, you know, when I think about "Wait for You," that it doesn't strike me in that way. Every other song does, you know, in certain ways. So that's my takeaway about the nominations. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, this one disappointed me, but this category's disappointed me in the past. I feel like this category is still very much on catch up to rap album about expanding its field. It's another place where I think JID got a giant snub. There's several songs on his album that could be here. Same thing with Joey Badass. Same thing with an album that I haven't mentioned yet. Black Thought and Danger Mouse's Cheat Codes. And let's not forget, you know, Danger Mouse is a former Producer of the Year winner. Black Thought and the Roots have won a handful of Grammys. And that album, well, songs from that album absolutely should be here. And looking at this, when I think of Song of the Year, it's another case where I'm pulling for Kendrick. I think in looking at what the zeitgeist is of loss and violence and recovering from, you know, watching members of our community, i.e. Nipsey, 3 years ago, the Heart Part 5 will hang around for a mighty long time. I think Jay-Z had a highlight moment on God Did. The song itself, you know, when people back in the day used to cut out verses, you know, or not play like the last verse of a song, this is a case where I think Jay-Z had a standout moment. The song itself, I don't think is better than Kendrick. I'll be happy if it wins. I'll be happy if it wins one of these categories, but that's what I'm thinking. And as far as Jack Harlow, Gunna and Future Drake and Thames, those are not deserving contenders to me. So that's where I
Yeah,
feel on it.
I agree with that, man. In terms of snubs, I would throw Head High in here again. You know, I would throw from JID Crack Sandwich, incredible story. You know, telling vehicle where he talks about him and his family and them getting into a fight together, how they fight amongst each other, but when it, you know, when it's going down, they like lock arms and fight the world. Cody Blue, Brother Them, like there's quite a few songs for JID on this for me. I think Supreme Alchemy from Black Star is a contender, or a couple other joints from that one. In terms of who wins, Kendrick, I think Kendrick takes it again. I will say Jay-Z's verse is transcendent and substantive because it's beyond him just bragging about his accomplishments and his rags to riches story. He's talking about prison reform, something he's devoted the last several years to. And so I think there's a lot of substance there too. So I don't know that I would say the Heart Part 5 has more substance than God Did, but you know, I think the Kendrick factor takes it.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, there's artists like Corday that put out music this year, and you know, I know you and I had a little difference of opinion on that album, where it belongs, but there were moments on there. Corday, seeing his name in nominations wouldn't surprise. Denzel Curry, as we talk about Gunna and Future arriving, Denzel Curry has arrived, and I think that the Grammys are missing out by acknowledging folks like that represent kind of both worlds of being able to make not trap, but just contemporary Southern music, as well as just rap his ass off, similar to JID. So yeah, this category, it's really down to two. But I think I'll go ahead.
There's one other thing I'd say about Jay. I think the X factor for him is that, you know, I think Grammys is politics too, right? And so I think people are going to remember that they gave this to Kendrick over Jay back in 2017 and the controversy that caused. We also know, and we saw this with Nas's King's Disease, best rap album, that a lot of times artists are kind of rewarded for kind of career victory laps instead of the actual body of work being evaluated. And so this could also swing in Jay's favor if that's the case. Kendrick has won countless awards now. I think he's probably like 20 deep or something crazy like that, you know, and definitely bound for more, you know. I don't think that anyone doubts that. So I could see that being the thing that took the scale in Jay's favor too, pun intended.
I have one more question for you on this. I mean, Rick Ross has never won a Grammy per his Wikipedia page. I'm sure he's been part of albums that have won, but they haven't been his. And, you know, he's had songs nominated in the past. If this wins, this song wins, and it's kind of Jay-Z's moment on Khaled's single, and you're Rick Ross, do you feel like you've won a Grammy?
Does Big Sean feel like he won one for Control? You know, I don't think so, man. No one ever talks about Ross or Wayne on this. They don't even talk about Khaled. The only thing that people talk about is Jay. And to your point about people cutting verses, whenever I've heard this song on the radio, it's only Jay's verse and it's played in its entirety. Wow. But you know what, Ross being Ross, he's gonna claim that Grammy and take it and be proud of it. So yeah, I think he probably shows up just to get it, you know?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Cool. Well, I'll turn it over to you for best rap album, which is the category that every year I'll say, even more than album of the year, this is the one that I check for, because I think that even though the Grammys have a long way to go, it's become the most inclusionary.
Yeah. So best rap album. You know what? Why don't we hold that one for last, since that's the most relevant, you know. Let's pull a Grammy move and say the best for last, you know, like
playing me off with the music. Yeah.
I'll go song of the year next. Song of the year, you know, again, this being about the written composition instead of the actual record. Adele, Easy on Me. Beyonce, Break My Soul. I just listened to that album again today. Liked it better than I did back in the day. Bonnie Raitt, although Break My Soul was for me instantaneous, but Bonnie Raitt, Just Like That. DJ Khaled featuring Rick Ross, Lil Wayne, Jay-Z, John Legend, and Friday, God Did. Gail, ABCDEFU. I've never even heard of Gail. Have you?
No.
Okay. I was gonna say
it's not Gail King, is it?
I was gonna say a crude joke based on the title, but I won't. Harry Styles, As It Was. Kendrick Lamar, The Heart Part 5. Lizzo, About Damn Time. Steve Lacy, Bad Habit. Taylor Swift, All Too Well. The 10-minute version, the short film, which is interesting. So, you know, the ones that are relevant. So, okay, here's what we alluded to earlier. And part of the reason why I don't think Jay will show up. I don't think he or Beyonce are going to show up. But now that I think about it, the Beyonce album got so much hype and publicity this year that I guess it's possible she might show up to get her flowers. But I don't think that she expects to get record album of the year. And it was partly her snub with Lemonade losing to Taylor Swift, and then Jay's snub with 444 losing to Damn, that they decided not to come together. So to come to compete with one another in the same category and possibly neither one of them get it, I don't think they show up for this. You know, do I think that I think B out of like Kendrick, Jay and B, and even Steve Lacy will throw him in there. I think Beyonce has the greatest chance of winning, but I don't know that any of them are going to win it. I think it might go to Harry Styles. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, it could go to Harry Styles for sure. I anticipate, honestly, in this category, I believe that it goes to Beyonce. And I do believe, based on what you said, that I don't think there's any way Beyonce shows up alone. They are, you know, the world's aspirational couple, and they move together. And they either show up with confidence that this is a win, or that one of these big categories is a win for Beyonce. I don't think they're showing up if she wasn't nominated. But yeah, I think that this is her. You make a really good counter with Harry Styles. I think that Taylor Swift will take a big category, but I don't think this is one. I think Break My Soul was truly an anthem, and one, again, like I said with Kendrick, that kind of fits into the zeitgeist of, you know, what are the messages coming from these times, and I think that fits. Yeah, so that's what I expect. And you know, I don't think the Grammys have made a Steve Lacy moment yet, but shout out to him. I mean, just coming from the Odd Future camp and the internet, already to become truly a massive star like this. I mean, we've watched Tyler do the same thing in a slightly different realm. But if Steve Lacy has a moment where he becomes a household name, others can argue that he already is one, but I think he's still kind of a critical darling that gets a lot of playlist love. This could be very, very telling. But to me, it's Beyonce, and the closest contender is Harry Styles.
Yeah, Adele's always an X factor, right? As is Taylor Swift, both Grammy darlings. But I would love to see Beyonce win this. I guess if I was rooting for one, it would probably be the Hard Part 5, but I think that Beyonce really deserves it. Let me ask you a question. You may or may not know the answer, but is this the first time that a husband and wife have competed against each other at the Grammys in a category?
Damn, that's a really, really good question. And I don't know that off the top of my head. I'm trying to think of good you know, of knee-jerk examples, but I can't come with it. We'll have to look into that. We'll put it in.
Yeah, I mean, I think about Gwen Stefani and
oh, my man from Bush.
Blake
oh no, yeah.
Blake
Shelton.
Yeah, Blake Shelton, right. But you know, I can't see them. I can't think of, you know, I'm just thinking of like husband and wife pairs even who are both in music, but
yeah, because Gavin, back when they were, I'm dating myself, but I'm thinking of her first go round. But yeah, that's a really, really tricky one. Certainly not Courtney Love and Kurt Cobain.
Yeah.
Not Yoko and John.
Yeah.
You know, what's interesting too is like, you know, shout out to Bonnie Raitt. Like, she is the one of these in the category just from an age and generation perspective. It's not like the others.
Yeah.
You know, and I do think, you know, Adele has commanded the Grammys before. I don't get the sense that this is going to be her year, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. But again, Kendrick and Hove, man, what is that? 4 categories they're competing in?
Yeah, it's really, really interesting. And if they show up, there will definitely be a moment. You know, that's really when Rock Nation throws that historic brunch. These guys are, even if there's real competitive rivalry, I think that if they do anything, they'll do it together to let heads know that it's all in good fun.
Yeah, and it really brings into focus that clip that Dave Free circulated from the Dumbo House performance where Kendrick was performing, you know, with a keyboard, and Beyonce and Jay-Z were looking on. Like, it's definitely all family there. So
yeah. So I alluded to it earlier, but it's just worth noting in here, and we won't spend a lot of time on it, but the best music video category, which, you know, throughout the years, Kanye's taken a win there. We've seen some other artists from hip hop grab this. And as you pointed out, you know, Kendrick's rollout was not a song first. It was the video. And that video was incredible. It was as artful as the music, arguably, I would say so. So that is, you know, the Hard Part 5 is competing, and it's up against Adele's Easy on Me, BTS is Yet to Come, Doja Cat's Woman, Harry Styles' As It Was, and Taylor Swift's All Too Well. You know, Taylor Swift is still having a moment. That album dropped the most recently, but do you think that Kendrick, who is also a video director with Dave and the, you know, the Little Homies, do you think that could take this category?
I do. It was just such a huge cultural moment. People were talking about that video for days, you know, on the news, like across all genres. The artistry, like the deep fakes and the timeliness of when he had people appear, even down to like Will Smith, you know, where hurt people. And Nipsey, like, you know, talking from the perspective of Nipsey Hussle to his family. Just the technical aspect of it was incredible, but the concept and the execution of it, I think it definitely deserves a best video nod, and a win would be deserved too.
Had you know, Busta Rhymes just did a video with Mary J. Blige, who's killing it in these awards nominations rather, but where they used a similar technology to project Busta's face onto a character. Have you seen that technology used as prominently in a music video before, Kendrick?
There was some video.
I mean, Kanye had the Taylor joint, right?
There was some, I remember there was some controversy when the video dropped about some guy saying that Kendrick had taken his concept.
Right.
Where I think that they had the deep fake, but I don't think the deep fake was that good. Like, I think the technology's evolved, but no, I can't think of any that I'd seen before that.
Not on that level, me either.
Yeah. All right, so record of the year.
And just for the people, I think we talked about this last year, but you've gone to the Grammys. How do you differentiate in your mind record of the year and song of the year?
So record of the year is the actual recording. It's that actual version, that performance.
Yeah.
Song of the year is, again, the composition, the lyrics. So I guess the best way to explain it is that there's only one version of Break My Soul, that's the Beyonce one on the album, but several people could cover the song and do their own versions of the song. But
Gotcha.
those versions would then be their own recordings, their own records. So the record is the performance, the song is just the lyrics.
Yeah.
But so record of the year is, nominees are ABBA, Don't Shut Me Down, which is wild to me that ABBA's still making music. Adele, Easy on Me. Beyonce's Break My Soul. Brandy Carly featuring Lucius, You and Me on the Rock. Doja Cat, Woman. Harry Styles, As It Was. Kendrick Lamar, The Heart Part 5. Lizzo, About Damn Time. Mary J. Blige, Good Night, Good Morning Gorgeous. Steve Lacy, Bad Habit. Steve Lacy, first of all, has got like a bunch of nominations, and Harry Styles has been, the blockbuster this year. Had his own Apple Music commercial. Like, he could be the guy who takes home a bunch of awards this year. Obviously, from our standpoint, if the Heart Part 5 won Record of the Year, it would blow my mind, just straight up. My mind would be blown. I do think that Beyonce has a good chance of Break My Soul. If I was betting on it, I'd put it Break My Soul and probably Harry Styles as the top two. But what about you?
Same. I mean, I really see those as the contenders. I think it was one of these years. Didn't Donald Glover win both Song of the Year and Record of the Year that way? And with this, yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I really see it again as a Beyonce and Harry Styles competition. And in this category, you're not seeing Taylor Swift. I don't, as much as I, respect, Kendrick and that song. Yeah, I mean, it could be Brandy Carlisle coming out of left field, but I think you and I are drinking the same water.
Yeah, either Redbone or This Is America, but I think Redbone. But
yeah, no, I think it was Redbone.
Yeah.
And Song of the Year, very similar. You're gonna see a lot of overlap. Adele, Easy on Me. Beyonce, Break My Soul. Bonnie Raitt, Just Like That. Khaled, Rick Ross, Wheezy, Jay-Z, John Legend and Friday, God Did. Gail, ABCDEFU, Harry Styles, As It Was, Kendrick, The Heart Part 5, Lizzo, About Damn Time, Steve Lacy again with Bad Habit, and here you see Miss Swift with All Too Well. And I'll just say for me, it's even given the context of what you said, I still see it as Beyonce and Harry.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing for me about this category is, this really kind of underscores your point about the Khaled record, is that it got nominated for Song of the Year for Jay's pen, his verse, but not Record of the Year, because people didn't think the performances or the production were worthy of Record of the Year, which is interesting given how many other nominations it's gotten, including like the best rap record. So yeah, man, I think I think you're right. I agree. Those are the two categories for me. All right, so you want to go album of the year or best rap album of the year last?
Let's do album of the year and then move into rap album, and then we'll talk about some notables.
Okay.
So for AOTY, shout out to Black Milk, who called his album that a few years ago. It's ABBA, who, I mean, I know you said you're shocked to see it. I was just in Europe recently. They are running things over there after all these years. Their album's called Voyage. Adele's 30. Bad Bunny's Un Verano Sin Ti. Beyonce's Renaissance. Mary J. Blige, Good Morning Gorgeous. They make a point to remind you it's the deluxe. Brandy Carlisle's In These Silent Days. Coldplay, Music of the Spears. K-Dot, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. Lizzo, Special, and Harry Styles, Harry's House. So this is the category that typically ends the night. What are your thoughts? What are your predictions?
Sheesh. I'll say this. I'll say that the two most hyped albums by far were Renaissance and Harry's House. I'd say by far. I think the one that had the greater staying power, if you really step back and look at it, was Harry's House. I'm sure the commercial didn't hurt with that. I do think that Grammys politics plays a role in that Renaissance could be their make good for Lemonade. And given the hype, then they would look like they were justified for it. So I
Yeah.
guess between the two, I would give the nod to Beyonce. Although, dude, like, it's so hard because I don't know, the Grammys just don't seem to want to give it up for Beyonce like that. So I don't know that she wins Album of the Year. It typically goes to a pop act. And here's the thing: Beyonce is the biggest pop act in the world. So you do the math. It does not often go to Black artists. Let's just put it that way. And especially those who have come, who've kind of crossed over time. Outkast and Lauryn Hill being the two notable exceptions. I will say that I believe firmly that Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers is the greatest body of work as an artistic statement. I think it is among Kendrick's best and certainly his most personal. So that would be my pick for Album of the Year. But what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see Kendrick get this moment. It would be his it would be his third Damn one and To Pimp a Butterfly one, right?
No, Album of the Year, neither one.
Oh, correct me.
That's the thing. Like it would actually be a huge make good for Kendrick because they had to feel dumb having him lose Album of the Year and then get the Pulitzer like a month later, and To Pimp a Butterfly being, I think, the second most nominated album ever to Michael Jackson's Thriller and not winning Album of the Year. Come on.
Yeah, pardon me on that too. And he was also, let's not forget it, because I had started the article on AFH on this, and there's a lot of data that I'm going through. He also was nominated for the Black Panther soundtrack. So 3 previous nominations. I'm gonna say something different than you. I'd love to see Kendrick win it. I haven't listened to all these albums. I haven't checked out Coldplay or Brandy Carlisle. I actually want to check out both of those albums. I think, you said that this category has not always been kind to Black artists. I think this category will go to Bad Bunny.
Bad Bunny. Interesting. I was going to say Adele. Like, so this one is wide open is basically what we're saying, right?
It is, but Bad Bunny,
open.
I mean, even in announcing the categories today, the Grammys are going so hard on just all that they're trying to accomplish in, the Spanish-speaking community. I think that this will be a changing of the guard. This will be a new superstar. I mean, Bad Bunny is already a superstar. Look no further than Made in America this year. But I think that this will be a referendum on that star power. Just a prediction. I'm not putting money on it or anything like that. But that's
Let me ask you this. So given what we just talked about how the Grammys have been good to Kendrick in genre categories, but not in the overall ones, do you think he shows up?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, this is a meaningful album. I think that, Kendrick has really, dialed in the tour for this. He's been using social media differently. I think he shows up, and he's been generous with the Grammys, just in the performances. And this is an Album of the Year nod. So I do think, him and Dave will be there.
I don't. I don't think he thinks he's going to win it. I think he's done that. He didn't show up for the BET Awards, which would have been a perfect time for him to promote that album.
Yeah.
He didn't show up for the MTV Awards. He's only done one interview, for this, aside from the one with the little girl, one like with a true like publication. I think this was his own like personal release, his own kind of like public journal. And I think he's just going to let it speak for itself. Doesn't care about awards. It is what it is.
You might be right. Kendrick, I firmly believe, and I will make a bet on this, will not go home empty-handed.
Yeah, no, I agree with that for sure.
Which is a perfect segue. I will turn it over to you for Rap Album of the Year.
So best rap album, we've mentioned all the names before with the exception of one, I believe. So it is DJ Khaled, God Did, Future, I Never Liked You. No, I won't respond to that. Jack Harlow, Come Home, The Kids Miss You. Kendrick Lamar, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, and then Pusha-T, It's Almost Dry. So the name we haven't mentioned yet today is Pusha-T, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And Pusha's been nominated in the past through the Clips and Justin Timberlake song, through some of his work with Good Music. And then Daytona was nominated in 2019 and then ultimately lost to Cardi B in her Best Album win. So Pusha's, pushing, pun intended, for a first album win, and that's significant. You know, his album was a division of production. There were other people involved, but it was primarily Kanye West versus Pharrell Williams, and it was modeled after the Versus battle. You and I did a great breakdown of that album and its production and who may have won that battle if it was a Versus. I want to begin in asking you a question. I mean, when Pusha put out that album, you know, Kanye was not in the state of mind or public opinion that he is now. Is Kanye West rolling that album as a producer, as releasing it through Good Music, Def Jam? Is he a liability to that album getting taken seriously at this juncture?
That's a hard one, man. I'm split. You know, on the one hand, I think people associate this with Pusha more than they do Kanye. And, you know, and Pusha has said since before it dropped, it's going to be the album of the year. And, you know, it's cool to see him get that nomination. But the Kanye is so radioactive right now that I think that anything that has anything to do with him is going to be punished. So yeah, I do think that. And listen, I'm gonna say also, I don't think that Pusha was going to win this. I think this is going to go to Kendrick. So I don't think that, but I think that any shot that he had is gone now because of Kanye. What about you?
Agree with everything you just said. I think this category goes to Kendrick hands down. If there's probably a 5% chance that it goes to Jack Harlow, and if that happens, there were a lot of people upset, you know, when Pusha lost to Cardi B, and that was the year that Nipsey Hussle was also, you know, nominated. That would be outrage. And the Grammys have, just when you think they won't screw up, they screw up even bigger. So there is a slim chance that happens, but I think Kendrick absolutely takes it here. You know, as far as Khaled, as much as I liked, you know, Jay's God Did verse, and I loved Jadakiss's moment on that album, I don't think it deserved to be here, quite frankly. And in many ways, I think that this is a catch-up moment for Future. Future has dominated a subspace of rap, you know, for over 10 years, over a decade, really since, in my mind, 2010, 2011. Again, he's somebody that isn't very Grammys likable, just the way he's done press, just his, you know, elements of his personal life. But Future's undeniable. And this is a year that you're going to see him in the category and know that it's not going to go to him. And yeah, that's just my take.
So we talked about snubs and other categories. To me, it's the same names for this one.
Yeah.
You know, I think JID's album, again, for me, is top two. Joey Badass's 2000 album is incredible. Black Star's album. So let's talk about this for a second. Do you think that their decision to put this out strictly on Luminary, the podcast platform, and not release it to Spotify and Apple Music and other digital service providers, do you think that that is something that hindered them in these nominations, or do you think they just were never going to get the nod because they're not well, Saturday Night Live, they were just on SNL, yeah. So.
And part of me was wondering that, like, if that was strategic, and we've watched A Tribe Called Quest, like, there's a lot of parallels to that SNL performance, both with Chappelle, Tribe. I mean, when I think of the Grammy nominations day, I famously think of Q-Tip having a really frustrating moment when Tribe got snubbed after they had performed just the year before. You know, for in 2016 they performed, in 2017, and then the following year they were not included. And Black Star is very much like that. I mean, and we watched the Grammys change its position with Chance the Rapper winning a few years ago. Luminary is a different animal, and I don't know about you, but since the springtime when Black Star dropped, I've still talked to a lot of people, or I've seen a lot of comments online of folks that weren't aware that that happened. This weekend was really nice watching SNL, them get a moment, but I don't think it was on the voting committee's radar. And I do think it's an album that deserves consideration. 100% think JID, what you just said. I think Joey Badass, and again, I think Black Thought and Danger Mouse deserve consideration. So there's a few snubs here. Black Star is different. And again, they didn't even put one song on the streaming platform, Steven Shop, as a single, but there are moments on there that absolutely could fit in with several of these categories.
Yeah, so what's your prediction for who wins it?
100% Kendrick Lamar.
Yeah. All right, cool, man. So anything else noteworthy for you that wasn't covered in those main categories?
A couple things. I'll start with my two favorite. Tobe Nwigwe up for Best New Artist. You and I have been covering Tobe, I think since 2019 for sure, but maybe 2018. I mean, he's been doing it. That category is famously tardy, on its recognition. And that's a sprawling category. I think there's like 10 names, but it's nice to see Tobe, who just, you want to talk about great music videos, phenomenal performance. Nice to see him get his recognition. Anything you want to add there?
Nah, same man. I love Toby. I think he's an incredible voice. Well, literally, and in terms of what he has to say. He's gotten a lot of love from BET Hip Hop Awards over the last couple of years, and it's great to see his profile rising. It's been Roots Picnic, but yeah, you're right. He's been out for a minute, and to get Best New Artist, that's a little weird, but it's typical Grammys.
And it's interesting though, because I believe Tobe is completely independent. I don't even think it's like a Macklemore or Little Dicky situation. As far as I know, there is no paperwork behind him. Just a movement out of his hometown of Houston. Another interesting thing, and Freestyle Fellowship, which is a group that just does not get Grammy level recognition. They're up for Best Historical Album, which is a category that, I'm sure it's a re-release and something like that, but to be honest with you, I didn't even know that that was a category. But their 1991 debut, To Whom It May Concern, is up. So shout out to AC Alone, Micah 9, Self Jupiter, all those guys.
Yeah, that's wild, man. I don't even know what the historical. What is that? Is that like a make good? Like what I don't even get what the
I think
category
it has to be a re-release. They announced it with the liner notes and with the packaging and all of that, but I was like, huh? Like they, and I'm watching on the screen, they didn't even say Freestyle Fellowship by name. They said To Whom It May Concern, and I love that because those guys, if you talk to some heads, especially in the case of AC Alone and Micah, two of the most phenomenal technical MCs. And even though that album, I think that came out through Fourth and Broadway and Island, it just wasn't one that dominated commercially. So interesting, just kind of point of note. There's some others though. You want to talk about them?
Yeah, so Dave Chappelle nominated for The Closer, that is wild to me. So maybe that eviscerates the whole argument we just made about Kanye, because the only thing that was even approaching the radioactivity that Kanye has had over the last couple months is the controversy around Dave Chappelle's Netflix special, The Closer. A lot of people accuse him of being transphobic in that. If you watch the thing in its entirety, Dave makes lots of comments and talks about someone who's close to him who was trans, and you might walk away with a different interpretation, but I'll leave that to people to make their own decision about it. But nevertheless, there was tons of controversy, and certainly about other things that Dave has talked about in the past. So that one's surprising for me that it got a nomination. And if it were to win, it would, I think, just resurface. It might even resurface the controversy now that it's been nominated. But that one was surprising for me. Two other ones for me are Terrace Martin got a nomination for Best Progressive R&B Album. I don't even remember that category before. The album is called Drones. We've had a song on the playlist for quite a while with Aaron Ray and Kendrick Lamar, which I love that song, but that's from the album Drones. A Glasper a Terrace Martin collaborator, and Robert Glasper. He and Terrace Martin were both very key figures in the recording of To Pimp a Butterfly with Kendrick, and worked very tirelessly on that album. Glasper is nominated for Best R&B Album. Super ironic to me, with Black Radio 3, because Glasper is like I could see progressive jazz because that's what Glasper does. But for R&B, I think that almost is like Tyler the Creator being nominated for Best Rap Artist, for which album was it? That was
Igor.
Igor, that was more like a R&B record. But this one is interesting because it's got a ton of rappers on it. It's got Big Crit, it's got D Smoke, it's got Pasta Noose, it's got a bunch of like rap artists on it. So, but in any case, cool to see him getting recognition of some sort. Any others for you?
Yeah, I mean, and Glasper won it with the first Black Radio, which was almost a decade ago, and that's a phenomenal series. Questlove's up for Best Audiobook. He won last year for a Summer Soul soundtrack. Producer of the Year, I mean, this is a major category. I alluded to Danger Mouse winning it in the past. Two guys that have done a lot of work with hip hop's top artists are up for it this year. Boy Wonder, who I think a lot of people associate with Drake, although he's at this juncture done amazing things, you know, Eminem, on and on and on. And DJ Dahi, who is somebody, and they announced him as just Dahi, but that was a production name that I started seeing when TDE broke through about a decade ago. And again, he's somebody that works with movers and shakers, certainly at the A-list throughout hip hop, but has moved on to other music. So shout out to both of those guys. And then just real quickly, spoken word album, Jay Ivy, who was part of the good music camp, you know, is on Never Let Me Down, has that amazing spoken word piece on College Dropout. And then Amir Suleiman, who is very down with Brother Ali and has appeared on a lot of his albums. Both of them are up for spoken word albums. So anytime there's, you know, touchstones of folks that aren't all up in your face, that get that moment, it's huge. And to your point, you know, with Chappelle, I don't think they've been broadcasting the comedic win. So, you know, over the years, we've reported on it a lot. If Dave is to win, we might report on it this year coming. But yeah, there wouldn't be a televised kind of moment, I don't think.
Yeah, yeah. All right, man. Well, so we always end these with a song of the week. I wanna flip it a little bit.
Okay.
And sorry to put you on the spot, but if you want me to go first, I will. But for song of the week, let's do a song from one of these projects that's been nominated. Could be an album or a record.
I like that a lot. You know what? I will go with Anti-Diaries. I think that that's just, and I know that the album's nominated. The song, much to my chagrin, is not. But I think that that is a phenomenal record. And at one point this week, I listened to it again and was just like, wow, this is a true piece of art and how I'll remember hip hop evolving in 2022. But what about you?
Yeah, I'm gonna go left. You know, I was gonna pick a song which you probably could guess from that project, but I'm gonna go with Break My Soul since I just listened to that today for the first time in a minute in the car. And you know how that just hits, man. It hits differently. And it's just such a great record, so uplifting, and give Beyonce her props. So I'm gonna go with Break My Soul.
Awesome, man. Well, I know we'll be probably doing this again in February after the awards, but I look forward to this, man. This one was dope.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. All right, man.
All right, peace.
Peace.